Could the Miami Heat make a trade with the Boston Celtics to acquire Jrue Holiday this summer? There are a lot of rumors about Boston having to shed salary due to their high tax bill, and with Jason Tatum being out for what is likely all of next season, they may just look to not tank, but kind of punt next year, get underneath the aprons and the luxury tax, and trade players like Jrue Holiday, maybe even Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis. Could the Heat get Jrue Holiday because of how cheap he would be in terms of acquiring via trade? Well, Jake Fischer, call it how it is, with him at least reporting it, did have an interesting note on Holiday's potential price in a trade. For all the circulation and the luxury tax concerns, bear in mind that actually trading Holiday might be harder than it sounds. Multiple rival executives have passed along that for all of Holiday's unquestioned championship know-how after contributing to title teams in Milwaukee and Boston, some form of incentive, such as draft compensation, might have to be attached to Holiday's contract to convince someone to absorb the $104 million remaining on the 34-year-old's deal over the next 3 seasons. And the initial thought is this. I like Jrue Holiday. I think he's a winning piece, but he is getting paid mid-30s millions of dollars per season over the next 3 years. He's going to be 34, 35, 36. But I'll be honest, folks. The reason why I'm making a show about this is because if I'm getting a first-round pick in that draft compensation laid out by Jake Fischer in also alongside Jrue Holiday, well, that certainly makes me intrigued of a potential deal. Before we dive into Holiday more in depth, help us out and grow the channel by sharing today's video. Send it to a friend, a family member, a coworker. I don't care. Just spread the word. It's great. The largest Heat report we can possibly find. Share it to social media as well. Help us out. Share today's show. That contract that was mentioned by Fisher and me, well, it is pretty rough here, because it's $32 million this upcoming season, $34.8 in 2026, and then in his final year, it's $37.2 million, which is a player option. And at this point in Jrue Holiday's career, you can basically guarantee he will opt in, because there's no world where he is able to get more money than that on the open market in NBA free agency. So he does have 3 years left at that $104 million price tag that Jake Fischer mentioned. And if you did acquire that contract this offseason via trade, it really does hamstring you in terms of your ability to create other moves and trades in the future. Like, assuming that you ultimately extend Tyler Hero and he gets a 3-year, $149.7 million deal, or you wait a season and it becomes the 4-year, $200 million deal, if you have that contract with Bam's max extension that he's already signed, and then you add in Jrue Holiday in the mid-30s, it really constricts you in the ability to acquire another max contract player. Whether that is a Kevin Durant this offseason and you want to extend him, whether it's an Anthony Edwards down the line, or whatever type of max contract player that you hope to trade for, well, if you make a Jrue Holiday deal, it would make it not impossible, but incredibly difficult, because you will without a doubt be a second apron team with all of those moves. And the question you have to ask yourself is the current iteration of Jrue Holiday not only worth the current contract that he has, but is it worth acquiring him to not allow you to potentially make some of these other moves that we just mentioned in the future? Well, Holiday is without a doubt a good contributing piece, and you see his numbers. Like, he's not being asked to be a top 3 player on a championship team. Hell, he was barely 4 or 5. You can make the debate on who is more important to that championship team between him and Kristaps Porzingis, but he did have a lot of impact in terms of his defense, his mindset, his pedigree, and his three-point shooting off the catch. Now, it did decrease a little bit this past season, but he does play 60-plus games, and the intrigue on him being a backcourt partner to Tyler Hero is certainly there. Before we go any further on today's show, I want to get your thoughts down below. It's the pinned comment on today's episode, so if you hit with YouTube ad break, scroll down and answer today's question. Are you interested in a Jrue Holiday trade? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I will say Miami was interested 2 years ago after the Giannis Antetokounmpo to Milwaukee trade, where Holiday ended up getting rerouted to Portland and then to Boston. Miami showed interest in Jrue Holiday. Actually, there was buzz about the Heat offering more for Jrue Holiday at the moment than they actually offered for Damian Lillard. But I will say at this point in getting Holiday is that he can't really create on the offensive end anymore. If you looked at his advanced shooting splits last season, you can really tell that he excels at playing off ball as a cutter, as a off ball shooter. Like, he shot 40.1% from three on catch and shoot opportunities. It was his second most shot type to the shots inside the paint around the rim under 10 feet, where he did shoot 58.7%. But the part that I really wanted to show is the percentage of shots and scoring that came in the 2024 season, because he actually shot more three-pointers. Like 47.2% of his points came from the beyond the arc. 42.6% came inside, so he primarily gets his shots from beyond the arc. Then the other percentage there is free throws, obviously. He is not someone that will create havoc inside, only scoring 37.3% of his points inside the paint. And this is the part that really intrigues me. When I said he can't create anymore, I don't know if it's because the way they use Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jason Tatum, like they just used Holiday as an off-ball offensive piece in the half court and a defensive point of attack guy, but 86.1% of his three-pointers he made were assisted, and then overall 65% of the shots he made, encompassing beyond the arc as well as inside the arc, came from assists, which means he's only getting 35% of his shots from his own creation or the free throw line, which is interesting. Now, I will say this. If you acquire Jrue Holiday via trade, you are not making that move with the idea in mind that he is going to be an offensive creator for you. You are making that move to be a complementary piece and defender to Tyler Hero. As we have consistently mentioned on the show, that Miami desperately needs to find a backcourt partner that can defend, that can knock down shots, as well as be a secondary ball handler for Hero, because they just need to give him some rest at times on the offensive end and hide him a little bit defensively. And I think Jrue Holiday can still defend at a relatively high level. When you look at his defense last season, players shot 44.4% against Jrue Holiday as the closest defender last year, and shot 33.8% on three-pointers when Holiday was the closest defender. Two statistics that I believe did translate to the playoffs, and overall as a good defender that he still can be at this age. We'll look more in depth at that here in a second. But we are sponsored by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy sports platform that I play every single day. And with the basketball playoffs coming to a close soon here, don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your PrizePicks lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. It's so easy to use. To create a lineup, all you do is got to pick more or less on a fewer player stat projections. You can combine different projections from different sports. You go basketball with baseball, hockey, golf, esports, much more. You can play Flex Friday, Taco Tuesday, couple cool specials they have during the week. I have an entry in for a full series here. You could go daily, season long, and how about series long? We just had game one of Knicks Pacers on Wednesday night. Not the worst start for me. I had Turner more than 15.5 points per game. He had 14, so very much in play there. I had more than Halliburton, 8.6 assists per game. He had 11, so good start there. Then I had less Karl-Anthony Towns, 11.5 rebounds per game. He had 12 in game one. So just around those numbers, nothing crazy, not out of it, not feeling scared just yet. But download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That link is in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks, run your game. I showed the overall statistics defensively in terms of overall in three-point shooting against Holiday, but I believe that he can still defend at a pretty high clip. He just has such good instincts, such good lateral movements, and he knows how to get square, not get put out of position to where you see him get racked up a lot of fouls often. And I think that was encapsulated against the Knicks. Although the Celtics lost that series in 6 games, Jrue Holiday did a pretty solid job defending Jalen Brunson. Now, they did put Derek White, Jaylen Brown on him for the most part, but over the course of those 6 games, Jrue Holiday did see 25.2 minutes of action defending Brunson that series, allowed 25 points, only forced him to shoot 29.2% from the field, 7 of 24, and Jalen Brunson shot 2 of 9 from 3, 22.2%. Now, as I mentioned, I do think Holiday does a good job of moving his feet, not getting put out of position to where he is forced to foul. Jalen Brunson, who's got one of the better whistles in the entire NBA, which, by the way, this is going to be a quick tangent. I'm sorry, folks. For the people that are disgusted by SGA apparently being a foul merchant, you know who draws more fouls per game? Yeah, Jalen Brunson. I don't want to hear it with SGA. That's just a little quick tangent. I'm sorry. I'll bring it in here. Get back on topic with Jrue Holiday. Brunson did force 5 fouls on Holiday when being defended, got to the line for 11 free throw attempts in those 25 minutes. But I believe Jrue Holiday did a pretty solid job on Brunson for most of that series. He's also versatile, could probably guard 1 through 3. We'll see if that's able to continue as he gets older. But right now, in what we've seen on film and on tape and in these games, I still think he could guard 1 through 3 in the NBA with his 6'4" frame and pretty long wingspan. Coming up here in just 1 second, we're going to talk about what a trade would look like for the Miami Heat if they acquire Jrue Holiday, plus a pretty wild idea at the end where I think Miami could go all in for this upcoming season. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel for daily Miami Heat content. If you want trade rumors, you want draft content as we're a month away from the draft getting underway, we'll have you covered here at the channel every single day. So subscribe today and join the Heat Report family. All right, so as Jake Fischer mentioned, many executives believe the Celtics may have to attach draft compensation to Jrue Holiday to move off that contract so they can get underneath the second apron and not have the largest luxury tax bill the league has ever seen. Well, then here is my suggested idea, because you do have to match salary to a degree, but I think this would help Boston out in quite a big way. So first of all, the Heat obviously get Jrue Holiday, and the draft compensation that Miami ultimately receives is the first-round pick they have this year, which is the 28th overall pick. Shout out Cleveland and the Thunder for having better records than them this season. And then the Celtics get their old friend Terry Rozier, Haywood, Highsmith, and then we offer a second-round pick back as well because we know Rozier is a negative asset himself. But the reason why I think Boston could be intrigued with that is because they're making this deal not because Jrue Holiday stinks, but they're doing it to shed salary. And although they wouldn't really shed that much salary, only about $2 million this season making this deal, what is key about these two contracts the Heat are giving Boston, Rozier, $26.6 million expiring contract, 1 year left. Haywood Highsmith, $5.6 million left, expiring. So you're getting 2 contracts that are not on your books past this upcoming season, which is very enticing for a team trying to get underneath the luxury tax and underneath that second apron. But in Miami's side of this, yes, you get that first-round pick, which would give you 2 picks in the 20s in this draft. If I am making a deal for Jrue Holiday, that to me is signifying I'm going all in on the next 2 seasons. And I'm willing to go into the first apron again, willing to have a luxury tax bill that's relatively high to try to win a championship. And it cannot be my only move. So I teased a crazy idea. How about this one, folks? Miami gets Jrue Holiday and Durantula Kevin Durant. It's a 3-team deal, essentially. Phoenix isn't sending anything to Boston, but it's basically just rerouting assets from Boston to Phoenix. Because remember, the Heat get a pick out of this. The Celtics remain getting that second-round pick, the Terry Rozier and Highsmith contracts. The only difference is that instead of keeping that 28th overall pick from Boston, Miami sends that to Phoenix alongside Andrew Wiggins, Nikola Jovic, and Duncan Robinson. Miami then just adds a first-round pick in 2030, and then they have 2 pick swaps in 28 and 29 with the Suns, which allow them to maybe choose the Heat's pick if it is better than the Suns' pick in that year. But I think this is fascinating because I think that's what it would cost, 2 first-rounders and 2 swaps plus Wiggins, Jovic, and Duncan for Phoenix. That deal gives the Suns a young player in Jovic, a lot of draft capital, as well as a contract in Duncan where they can cut and they can get underneath the second apron themselves. We already talked about why Boston would do it, and then Miami ultimately comes away with 2 veteran pieces to help them try to win now in Jrue Holiday and Kevin Durant. So let me know your thoughts. Would you make this deal? Type A for accept, type D for decline. Would you go all in to acquire Jrue Holiday and KD and be competitive this year? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll tell you what, I'm slightly moved by making this deal because if you make that trade, yeah, you're making an all-in move and you're going really balls to the walls. You have a starting five that I think is among the top of the Eastern Conference. I mean, Tyler Hero and Jrue Holiday in your backcourt, KD, Bam, and Kel'el Ware are your front court. Like, that has offensive versatility. It has defense with Holiday, Bam, Ware is your rim protector. While in that trade, by the way, you kept the 20th overall pick to add to your bench and add to your young core. You kept Jaime Jaquez Jr. Hopefully he has a year 3 resurgence. You still have second-round pick Paul Larson, who showed a lot of good things. You still have a Kashad Johnson. You could re-sign Davion Mitchell. And yeah, it would be expensive, but you could do it if you wanted to. And then just fill out your roster with vet min guys, maybe an Alec Burks or something like that. You still have Kevin Love as well. Like, that is an interesting team. And for a Eastern Conference that is very open next year with Tatum's injury, Giannis likely being on the move, or the Bucks just being bad, like, that 5-man group right there with that bench will absolutely compete with the Cavs, Knicks, Pacers, Pistons at the Eastern Conference highest level next year. And I would be able to put on the table with Eric Spoelstra coaching that team, they could easily win the Eastern Conference. Could they win the title? I don't know, but it certainly could be an NBA Finals team with that championship pedigree, blend of offense, defense, and depth on that roster. It would be expensive. It would prohibit you from making big moves the next 2 to 3 years, but you would be honed in with that core for the next 3 seasons trying to compete. It's certainly something to kind of just have a conversation about and keep your mind open on. All right, I'll do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here at the Heat Report, as you always do. And if you haven't already, hit that sub button because we put out daily content. And if you're still watching and you're not subscribed, well, I don't know why. You clearly like what we're doing if you're still watching. So join the channel today.